Hello, this is Tea with the Druid. My name is Philip Cargom, and Tea with the Druid is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And you're very welcome whether you're watching the recording or whether you're watching live right now. And it's lovely to see everybody arriving here from Bristol and Flintshire in North Wales and Gloucestershire and Stirlingshire and Denmark and Lincolnshire and Aberdeenshire and Ballinakillo in Ireland and East Yorkshire and Hamilton, New Zealand, and Bromley in Kent and Bookham in Surrey in Germany and Amsterdam and North Yorkshire and Crouch End and Banbury in Ohio, USA, and from Kyiv, greetings, and California, Cambridge, Costa Rica. Lovely, our worldwide family all coming together. Isn't that just fantastic? And if you're new here, a big welcome to you. I was Stephanie and I and about 40 of us were at an event in Glastonbury this weekend. We had beautiful weather. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear the rain outside now? It's hammering away outside. There were many people, many new people as well. And it's always lovely to welcome new people. So if you're new to Tea with the Druid, a big welcome to you. It's lovely to see everybody still arriving from Finland and Northern Germany and Brazil. Fantastic. And Dartmoor and Italy. Let's take a deep breath and pause for a moment just to enjoy and open to the fact that we are sitting together at this time. The big kind of anchor in the Druid tradition is this idea of the sacred grove, this place where we can gather, where we put aside our differences, where we come from every direction, east, south, north, and west, just as we're coming from every direction in this evening broadcast. Atlanta, Knockholt, New Brunswick in Canada, Harold Hill. So in this anchoring place, we're coming from all directions, setting aside for a moment our troubles and cares. You know, there's a phrase in the beginning of Druid ceremonies that go, we leave outside all disturbing thoughts, which is like as we step into the circle, we step into a place of calm, just trying to be open to the moment. And in that spirit, maybe you'd like to spend a moment just checking in with yourself. Notice where you sense yourself or your center. Try, if you take the instruction, center yourself. Where is that center? Where do you go? And how are you feeling? What's the predominant tone, the predominant mood? And do say where you're from. Where you're from, in your body, where you're sensing you're coming from, and what the feeling is inside. Fully understanding that at any moment that can change, and it's not set in stone. And meanwhile, more people are gathering as we do this. Headish, slightly weary but happy. Usually the solar plexus, feeling content. Root chakra, grounded and in control. Warmth from the stomach. Chest, because I'm a bit under weather. In my solar plexus, anticipation. In my head, cautiously optimistic. Center of the forehead, slightly tired. In my pelvis, content. Contracted. Going so fast. Usually so fast. Heart feels heavy this evening. Earthy. Melancholic mood. The rain sometimes drones and cruise missiles. I'm so sorry to hear that. I think you're in Kiev. In my head, sore and tired. Watery. In my soul, in my deep soul, free. Anxious in my chest and heart. Feeling heartbroken, need my tea. Right behind my eyes, feeling anxious. Fingertips tingling with energy. Moving towards calm. Decluttered after being at the Mount Haemus lectures. You were there in Glastonbury. How lovely it was. We had lovely, lovely weather and it was just a wonderful day. A little anxious tonight, awareness from throughout my body. Feeling hopeful but tired. In my diaphragm, winding down and calm. Peace profound. Whacked. Contented. My mind and body nourished this evening. Heart tired. Balanced and peaceful to my core. Excitable. Need this tea to calm me. Lisa, remembering those lost in October the 7th and prayers for peace. Exactly. Yeah. Worried. Peaceful. See a stream with stones and green hills in my mind's eye. Exhausted and productive. Green. Surprisingly chilled. Worried about my friend in Palestine. Worried. Yes, thank you. Lots to worry about, lots to be upset about, I think. The October the 7th anniversary, how that has unfolded over the last year in such a tragic way. The immense suffering that has been unleashed and continues, bearing in mind that has been happening and is carrying on happening in other places too. Ukraine, feeling for those in Ukraine who are suffering, and all over the world, Sudan, Yemen, Central African Republic, and so on. And so part of the goal, I think, of us being together, the reason we gather together, is because we need a sense of community. We need to be able to access calm in ourselves in order to be able to function really in this world. I came across an article I wrote. It was before 9/11. It was when something awful happened before 9/11. There's the hurricane as well. I've been noticing, reading in the Druid Hearth, which is a kind of collective community resource we have within the order. Members of the order who are struggling with flooding and Stephanie just told me that a hurricane was about to hit Florida that was very powerful and so on. So it's not only military and political events, it's also climate change events and the weather as well that's causing suffering as well for people. But let me read to you this a little bit of what I read, because we tend to shy away from politics, but actually. Let me just read you a little from Ronald Hutton, a great friend of Druidry, who's written a lot about the Druids, wrote on radical Druidry. Stukely was at first a pagan Neoplatonist who disapproved of the intolerance of Christianity. Iolo was a pacifist and a Republican who was regarded as dangerous by the government and held a Gorseth of bards that was broken up by mounted militiamen. William Price, these are all Druids, famous figures in the recent history of Druidry. William Price, a revolutionary who plotted to overthrow the state by an armed uprising, oh dear, did not believe in marriage or Christianity, and won a law case that made cremation possible in the UK. It's rather extraordinary that that's why we can be cremated now in the UK, or at least he made it legally possible. George Watson McGregor Reed, a radical scientist, socialist, who incited workers to strike and native peoples in North Africa to resist Western imperialism. The claimed list of chosen chiefs is a roll call of radicals and free thinkers. And following on from that, I wrote, at this critical time in world history, and it's funny how, there were critical times about 25 years ago when I wrote this. I wrote another piece. I might have written this for 9/11, actually. I'm not sure. At 9/11, it was a critical time. So at this critical time in world history, I believe it is important to examine how we relate to the world of politics. It is easy to say that it has nothing to do with spirituality, but is this really so? In thinking about what a Druid's relationship to politics might be, I looked back at the attitudes of previous chiefs and discovered a remarkably consistent thread of beliefs that led them all to promote liberal and socialist ideals, advocate freedom and justice for the underprivileged. Just to note that the term socialist is used with a British, not an American understanding of that term. In the 19th century, Gerald Massey campaigned against slavery in the United States and is now a hero of Afro-American scholars. In the early 20th century, George Watson McGregor Reed championed the rights of working men and stood for election in the American Senate and the British Parliament, as well as leading the Druid Order. I know the most about my predecessor, Ross Nichols, Newen, who I trained with, who continued this tradition by championing monetary reform, pacifism and socialism. Newen was a man of ideals, which he not only articulated, but which he practiced throughout his life. He believed passionately in the need for us to return to a closer relationship with nature and the need for us to retreat often to the countryside, to living on the land in as simple a way as possible. And he did this by embracing the philosophy of naturism and by creating his own woodland sanctuary of utter simplicity. He also devoted the latter years of his life to articulating and practicing Druidry, a spirituality which has as its aim this return to a communion with the natural world. And Newen's, just to clarify, his woodland sanctuary is he just bought a few acres of woodland that coincidentally happened to be right next to my godmother's garden. And he put up a couple of wooden huts, and then he and fellow Druids would go there for weekends or for holidays, and they would just live incredibly simply out in the woods, out in nature. Newen showed his love of nature in his poetry, in his writing of much of the order's seasonal rituals, in his painting, and in his frequent retreats to the woods. His vegetarianism was another expression of his reverence for life, as was his pacifism. He wanted nothing killed deliberately, human or animal. And above all, he didn't want all this just for himself. He had a political and social conscience that meant that his idealism was not unrealistic, selfish, or elitist. He wanted everyone to benefit from the ideals he believed in. Hence his commitment to socialism and the social credit movement, which attempted to completely revision the way we deal with money. In other words, his idealism was practical. It was grounded in his actions and behavior, as well as his philosophy and in his heart. Those same ideals are alive today. The back to nature philosophy has taken on an urgency uncontemplated in Ross's time, in Newen's time, when the extent of environmental degradation was not yet fully appreciated. The ideas of fairer wealth distribution behind the social credit movement drive the anti-capitalist and anti-globalization movements of today. And the reverence for life that he showed in his vegetarianism and pacifism continue to inspire people around the world and have broadened to include the advocacy of organic and compassionate farming and such related movements of that of permaculture and of resistance to genetic modification. Ross, like those of his contemporaries who dared to challenge authority, embraced ideals and acted upon them, which have created the cornerstones of contemporary alternative culture. And now, to a great extent because of the mess that conventional wisdom has created for us, the challenge for those of us who also embrace these ideals is to build upon the work of our spiritual and political ancestors, such as Nguyen, so that one day these ideals are no longer alternative and therefore marginalized. Excitingly, the process has already begun. Until recently, those of us in the Druid community have concentrated on building a sense of community, creating structures and ways of teaching that focus primarily on our own spiritual and personal development, helping ourselves take charge of our reality and develop it in positive ways. Now I believe it is time to expand our focus to include more than just ourselves. This means accepting that we have an influence in the world, that we can change things for the better, that we don't have to be passive consumers, and that being a spiritual being on earth doesn't involve simply working on our own spiritual development. In short, it means dipping our toes into the wider sea and engaging those two contentious areas of politics and beliefs. I used to groan when I heard the word politics. I used to run a mile when I smelt a whiff of politics in an organization or a group. But over the years, I discovered that where two or more people are gathered together, there are politics. And I stopped running away because unless you become a hermit, there's nowhere to go. Any relationship, if it is to be more than superficial, runs into politics. By virtue of being human, we have different views and opinions, and we have to negotiate, compromise sometimes, refuse to compromise at other times, give in, stand firm, and so on. Likewise, in a group, it's simply naive to think that a group of people can run anything without sometimes disagreeing or needing to negotiate. Rather than pretending politics isn't relevant to spirituality, I think it's time for us to recognize that it is an integral part of it, since politics is about being human. If you're having difficulty with this, change the word to community. World politics becomes world community and the difficulties and challenges it faces. We all know that we are one people on one earth, and if we're not careful, we might just mess the whole thing up completely. In the times we live in, there is a powerful sense that we stand at a crossroads, at a threshold in the story of humanity. Suggesting that this is of no concern to us, or that as spiritual seekers we shouldn't be concerned with politics, seems very much like denial to me at this point in our history. But how on earth do we engage this issue without it degenerating into us all standing up and shouting out our different political opinions? And we all know how difficult that is, particularly on social media. My suggestion is that we try to engage the issue at a different level. There are plenty of forums for political debate already, so we don't have to reinvent those. I think instead we can take two words and use them as keys. One is community, as I've just mentioned. The other is justice, expanded so that we can see it in its widest sense. Druidry has always been concerned with justice. In the old days, Druids were judges and lawmakers. And if we expand the concept to include social justice and economic justice, we can start to see what the term implies. You see, it's rather interesting. There's an interesting little detail about Druid history that you may not appreciate, which is with the ancient Druids, the Druids were an elite, like the Brahmins in India, for instance. They were the judges, the lawyers, the advisors to the tribal chiefs and chieftains. They were the exempt from military service, exempt from taxes, and so on. But in the time of the Druid revival, in the last 300 years, it's almost like that's flipped around. So when the ancient order of Druids was founded by Henry Hurl in that pub in Poland Street in London, he envisioned it as a place where working people could go to receive the benefits of community, of a fraternal group. Everybody would chip in a tiny bit of money each week, and as a result, there'd be a big pot, so that if your house burnt down, you got ill, you couldn't work, you were injured, and so on, the community, your fellow Druids could help. So it was a forerunner of the concept of the welfare state before it existed, and it was a sort of working man and woman's version of Freemasonry, which was for the more aristocratic and the richer folk. And then we've seen from what Ronald Hutton explained in the opening quote how Druids have championed workers' rights and so on. So there's an interesting nuance in Druid history about how it's flipping around from the elite to championing social justice. Some people object to the concept of the love of justice in the Druid's prayers, this famous Druid's prayer, which includes the love of justice in it, believing it allies Druidry with the sometimes repressive forces of law and order and the establishment. But all you need to do is look at the Amnesty International literature, or to think of the terrible injustices inflicted on so many people all over the world, to understand what the prayer is really referring to, and how, for a Druid, the love of justice is fundamental. Our world is so full of social and economic injustices of every kind that it seems to me that a spirituality where justice is a key concept, and where its early practitioners were actually responsible for administering justice, can quite legitimately begin to engage the big question of how can we build a more just world. And this big question immediately raises another one. What would our world look like if there was more justice? How would we live? These questions move us towards the exciting and creative area of envisioning the future and of trying to create a better way of living together, of community. Of course, when we're faced with tragic and sad news from so many corners of the globe where war, suffering, poverty, and famine exists, it seems too big a task to even begin. But we must begin in however small a way. Remember, no snowflake ever feels it started the avalanche. Now, I won't read any more because it'll take too long, but I will give you the link for the rest of that essay. And there's a whole section on the Order's website where members contribute articles about social justice. And do have a look at that. I'll give those two links on the notes for this broadcast and in my blog as well. So thank you for listening to that. I'm going to very much enjoy reading your comments. I'm aware that took a little while to talk, but I think on today of all days, it was perhaps the right topic to talk about. So let us now enter into a meditation. If you're feeling like it, if you don't feel in the mood, that's okay. Just sit and listen. But if you feel like it, you might like to lower your gaze or close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself and to sense yourself gradually transitioning from an awareness of being seated in front of your screen to an awareness of being seated in a forest clearing. You can hear birds in the trees. You can sense the life in the forest around you. You can sense the earth beneath you, and you can smell the earth. that beautiful healing smell of the earth. And you take in a deep breath, hold for a moment, and then you release it fully and deeply. And as you do, you allow yourself just to sink into the energy of the earth, to allow the earth just to soothe you and calm you, anchor you and stabilize you. You realize that your energy field drops into the earth because as you sit or lie on the earth, perhaps with your perhaps with your back against the trunk of a tree, perhaps just sitting on a stone or a log or the earth, your energy field goes into the earth. What a lovely feeling. We're all a bit like potted plants. We're sitting on the earth, or near close to the earth, and the lower part of our aura is dropping down into the earth. So we can allow ourselves to root there, and we can allow all these tiny little filaments of our roots and any stronger roots just to draw up energy into our energy field, into our aura, drawing it up into our solar plexus. The energy of the earth flowing into our beings, bringing a sense of richness, of fertility, of settled calm. And sense now the trees around you and how the trees are present as beings. It's not just us in this circle of 200 or so of us from all over the world who are sitting in this circle now, but it's these trees around us too, and they are alive and they are blessing us. And as you breathe in the energy of the trees, the delicious essential oils that they exude, energizing and healing you. And just as the trees are rooted in the earth, so they reach up to the sky as we do, and you become aware of the sky now. And you breathe in the energy of the sky. And notice how it makes you feel as you breathe deeply in, breathing in this sky energy. That kind of vitalizing, energizing force that flows into you. And the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And you allow your awareness of the center of your being just to be present to you now. And if you can't quite sense where it is, just imagine where it is, just where you'd like it to be. Just kind of locate your awareness in that part of the field of who you are, where you'd like to sense your center. And then open that point out. Just allow your awareness just to open from this place, just like a lotus opening, like a flower opening its petals. Might help to breathe into this opening sensation. May my center be open. May life force flow into the center of my being and flow from the center of my being. May I be nourished at source. May the deep well springs of love and energy and healing and life flow through my being. Bringing vitality and healing, joy and peace. And you become aware now, not only of your energy field, but of also being seated in this circle around a little fire in the center. This circle of beings. And if it feels right, you just let your hands and your imagination just drift up, and you take the hands of the person to either side of you. So that now we, as human beings, are sitting here in peace and in love. One community, one humanity here on this earth. May the joy, the love, the stability, the peace, the calm, and the healing flow from our circle across the earth. May peace prevail. May all life be blessed. You give a gentle squeeze to the hand to either side you, and as you do that, it's almost as if you can feel a pulse of energy flowing from our circle across the earth. You let go of the hands. You move the palms of your hands to the earth. May the earth be blessed. May the land be blessed. And then you allow your hands to drift up to your heart. You place both the palms on your heart. And you might like to do that physically. And as you feel the warmth of your hands flowing into your body, you feel the warmth flowing through your energy field. And retaining all the positive feelings in your body, your heart, and your mind. You gradually allow your awareness of the body to grow stronger as your awareness of being seated in the sacred grove begins to fade. And gradually moving your hands down to your lap now, stretching your fingers and toes. When you feel ready, you open your eyes, feeling fully present here and now. So, thank you all so much for being here. I'll put this. I'll put these two links in here in the chat now, so you've got them, and I'll transfer them to the notes later. This was what I read from, and the article carries on. And this is the next link is the section on the website where members have written their contributions about these topics too. There we lots of comments. Lovely. Thank you so much. Much love to everybody. Many, many blessings. And I'll see some of you in the Druid Hearth now, and see you all next week too. Okay. Bye, everyone.